Chapter 52. Blue. Classes are a strain in a way I'm not used to. It takes a physical effort to keep my body moving through the day. Today, it's mostly classes that I get to attend with my master. I usually look forward to days like this, but it's just a mess as my body protests every motion. I'm counting down the minutes in Wandcrafts. It's the last class of the day before I get to just sleep in the care center, and I'm looking forward to it. But the second that we come out of the classroom, we are greeted by a not unfamiliar face. I recognize the Zenzi cub in front of us as the one that belongs to the advanced casting professor, but I'm not sure if my master recognizes them. He's just looking at the familiar in front of him in confusion. Jewel passes an awkward moment just standing in front of us, waiting to be addressed. I can see the nervous look in their eyes as they keep their head respectfully bowed, watching our shoes with fidgety energy. I don't think I've seen them without their master before, but I suppose it isn't uncommon to send a familiar as a messenger.
"Jewel, what are you doing here?"
Master snaps out of his daze, addressing the familiar that's come to block our way down the hall. Jewel, for their part, seems genuinely surprised that Kara remembered their name.
"My master requires your presence, Sir Ktor."
Jewel speaks in a clear and even tone that belies their skittishness. Sir Ktor? Is that his last name? I realize that I don't know a lot about my master. Either way, I don't like the image I'm receiving from Jewel. To be honest, I was really hoping not to have to see the professor until class at the end of the week. Or rather, never again. In either case, Master can't flat out refuse a summons from a teacher, and he has a whole hour until his next class starts.
"Blue, would you rather go to the care center or come up with me?"
Master offers me the choice as Jewel waits demurely. The herbology professor doesn't allow familiars anyways, so there's really no reason to keep me with him. I feel tired. I'd like to take a nap. But the churning in my stomach lets me know I'd never be able to sleep. I'd be wondering what was happening, if my master was getting in trouble for my incompetence, or if the professor was convincing my master of how little I am worth. Master is offering me knowledge. I won't be able to change anything that's said. I can't argue any of the points, or even defend myself. But knowing what's happening is a gift I've been denied too often not to see its value. Please, Master, may I come with you? I try to ask in the most proper, well-mannered way I can, but I don't miss the little twitch Jewel makes. Requests and preferences probably aren't very high on Ryuki's list of acceptable behaviors. I wonder what kind of punishment they'd face for voicing such a wish. Master, for his part, takes no notice of this and just presses on.
"All right, then,"
he acknowledges before motioning for Jewel to lead the way. Jewel looks back and forth for a second with wide eyes, but in the end seems relieved that the task they've been appointed to is being accomplished. As we climb the tower that leads up to Professor Berg's classroom, I wonder if I've made the right choice. We don't go all the way up to the main classroom, instead stopping at the second floor and turning off at a large and rather ornate door at the end of the hall.
"Master, I've brought Sir Ktor."
Jewel speaks after giving a prim little knock on the door.
"Enter."
Professor Berg's voice echoes through the door. Jewel opens up the door, holding a slight bow as they gesture us in. The room seems to be a nice office. The smell of the incense coming from the room is intense. There's dark wallpaper with intricate patterns set into the deep colors, only visible with careful examination. There are several ritual circles stained into the hardwood floor, though there is a wide circular rug that seems to cover most of the room. The walls are covered by bookshelves, though the chamber walls that extend farther up have some larger tapestries to cover the bare stonework. There's a tall window that brings in a little light, though it is a rather intricate piece of stained glass. I wonder if the piece was here originally, or if the professor had it commissioned. It looks like a rather artistic rendering of the world's planar structure. Though, to be fair, I've only seen the labeled diagram in my master's textbook. It could be anything, really. The desk is an imposing block of dark-stained wood with stacks of parchment and scrolls and a wide crystalline bottle of ink spread over it. Behind the wide structure of the desk sits Professor Berg, fingers steepled as he waits for us to come inside.
Oh, you brought that.
He exhales as his eyes flick over my form. The disappointment is palpable in his voice, and I can't help but look away, trying to shrink in on myself.
He's my familiar,
Master shoots back, matter of fact to the point that I think he's missed the professor's tone.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about anyway. Please, sit.
He offers the high-backed wooden chair to my master, emphatically not looking at me.
Why did you want to talk to me, Professor?
Master speaks very frankly as he sits down in the chair across from his teacher. I lag behind for a few seconds, watching as Jewel makes their way behind the desk to kneel by their master. The furthest corner of the rug runs just past the chair, near the desk. I doubt it was by design, but I am thankful for the plush cushion as I go to my knees beside my own master.
I need to talk to you about your choices regarding your familiar.
Professor Berg takes my master's blunt start and answers in kind. I feel my stomach drop. I'm glad, at least, that I'm already kneeling.
And why would we need to talk about that?
I'm sure my master is playing dumb now.
Kara, you're a bright student. You cannot be this blind.
He deadpans, leaning back and crossing his arms, staring at my master as though he is faced with a particularly vexing problem.
Regardless, I do believe that this is my choice to make.
Master doesn't yield ground, but the carefree composure that he came in with is gone.
Yes, but I am worried about you. It's not a matter of doing well in my class. Unstable familiars are not safe.
He voices my anxieties as I do my best to curl up into a ball and disappear.
I am doing strong work in your class.
Master shoots back, but Professor Berg cuts him off.
It's not about my class, Kara. This is about making bad choices as a mage.
He nearly shouts. He takes a moment to take a breath before continuing on with a much more sedate tone.
My sister got sentimental about her familiar and continued to use an unstable one long after she should have. Soon he wouldn't stay still. He mislabeled jars. He caused all manner of mischief in her lab.
There's a note in his voice that makes my chest twinge painfully.
That doesn't seem...
Master tries to speak, but Ryuki cuts him off again.
He got her killed, Kara. I am looking out for your best interests. He disrupted her magic while she was channeling, and she died in the resulting chaos.
For a long moment, Master doesn't speak, and my heart races. I didn't know that familiars could mess with the spells they were involved in. I thought we had to stay still for the ease of the caster. I had no idea that it could be dangerous for the person casting. As much as I want to stay by his side, I remember the urge to run, the involuntary movement that was triggered in the magic's flux. I don't know if there's anything I could do to fix that. It could be dangerous for me to remain as my master's familiar. I could cause problems with the finer magics. I don't want to be dangerous. I don't want Kara to get hurt because of my failings. There's a loud sound as the chair scrapes against the hardwood floor that shocks me out of my musings. Master has stood up from where he was sitting. His body is tense, and he takes an additional second before he responds.
I am sorry for your loss, Professor, but I know what I'm doing.
Master's voice is hard, but not without sympathy as he holds eye contact with his teacher. I turn to follow as Master storms out of the room.
I hope so.
Ryuki huffs out under his breath. I'm almost certain I wasn't meant to hear it, but I, for once, agree with the professor. I hope my master knows what he's doing. Kara!
School, for once, is an unwelcome distraction. People actively want to talk to me for a change, and it's not for the best of reasons. People have been congratulating me in a way that's more of a condolence, and I don't care for it. The whole school's abuzz with last week's problems. Apparently, the fire lily caught their interest, but they really started paying attention after the mess of our first casting. Especially given the fact that the day after, we got a private audience with Professor Berg. I don't know how to feel about that. About how fast news gets around. About how closely we're being watched. About this whole fucking situation. It's certainly not helped by the fact that Blue is still bothered by everything. The entirety of the events of the past few weeks, not to mention the lifetime of rampant abuses that I just casually keep forgetting to factor in, because I am the worst person, and entirely ill-suited for this. I still can't get the conversation Shauna and I had after we'd finished our screaming match out of my head. She'd waited until I calmed down before she even tried to talk.
I understand you're mad, she starts cautiously, but I am so pissed I don't let her finish.
Blindingly so,
I grind out, trying to count to 10 in my head, and just breathe. I don't like the way she was dismissing Blue, like it was nothing, as if the concept of getting a new familiar was nothing more than picking out a paperweight. I had thought she was coming along to the idea that familiars were more than that. She's been so nice with Ande. I suppose it was just wishful thinking. I'll leave you to yours, then. But... She tries to continue, but I'm too wound up to listen. What? I snap, instead of just hearing her out. I immediately color at what I've just said, ducking so that I won't have to meet her eyes. Kara! She chastises me as lightly as she figures she can get away with before continuing. On a lighter note, your birthday's coming up.
Shauna, don't. I don't know what she was going to say, but I really can't handle it if she starts suggesting that we go out and get a new familiar for the occasion.
I just wanted to get you out of the house. Come on, I'll take you out to one of those little places that you like. Make sure you get well and truly drunk. Try to forget Professor Berg's face.
She bumps my shoulder casually, but I don't miss the concern that crosses her face when I look up to her. Oh, stars, don't remind me. I hide my head in my hands. I had purposely put myself off thinking about any of that, about how I had practically run from the room after we finished our ritual. I try really hard not to think about the way Blue tried to stay upright, the glazed look that had fallen over his eyes when he tried to walk back to me after the casting, the way he went limp only a step or so outside of the circle.
Hell, I think he's just mad that you managed to build a stronger spell than any of his favorites, even though you let it go early.
She tries to turn the whole situation around and make it a good thing. I can't stifle the groan that comes out of me. I wasn't thinking about the spell. Hell, I'd forgotten about the assignment altogether. It's just fuel on the fire that the magic went well. It's just going to make this whole thing harder to sweep under the rug. It's not as forgettable as I was hoping it would be.
Just think about it. You need some time away. I haven't gotten to hang out with my buddy in forever.
Shauna prods warmly, fishing for a smile. And I do want to indulge her, but I can't find it within me to produce one. I'll think about it. Now please, I just need some space, okay?
I fix her with a very tired gaze and try to convey just how deeply I need space. Yeah, Kay, I'll get out of your hair. But I am spiriting you away at the end of the week. She said it quietly, but it's like no less of a promise.
It's been rattling around in my mind all weekend. That promise was just a little concerning. Still, I don't know what her plans are. It'll probably be fine. I do have some more pressing matters to attend to anyways. I never thought that I would be on the lookout for teachers and their familiars. Ryuki scared me. Not in the normal way, because he's a teacher that already doesn't like me, and is a constant danger to my very tentative place here, but because when he called me into his office, he genuinely believed that he was helping me. He was as rattled by what happened in our casting ritual as anyone. I suppose it is fairly reasonable, given his history with castings going wrong. Losing someone close to you always does funny things to your perception. It's not an excuse for his behavior, the way he treats Jewel or how perpetually terrified he keeps his familiar. But it does provide some context, at least. I didn't know that familiars could influence castings by messing it up or otherwise. I suppose it should have been obvious. Why would there be such harsh restrictions on familiars otherwise? Why would there be a class that was specifically designed to teach proper care for familiars? Why would there be training manuals detailing how to break and abuse familiars, all for the sake of keeping them in their place? I should have connected the dots before. It seems so obvious in retrospect. I don't really know anything about my magic. Academic magics are a lot different than I thought they would be, but I never had a realistic idea of what it would be anyways. I never did. I want to kick myself for how foolish I was, thinking that all I needed was a few knowledgeable people and a classroom to study in. I know magic that I shouldn't. Magic that we aren't going to touch on for years. At the same time, I don't know some of the most fundamental basics. There are simple symbols, wand and staff tricks, even dueling postures that everyone seems to understand but that make no sense to me. It's too much of a culture difference. I don't know what these people know, what their entire upbringings have prepared them for. Everything that I know has been either trial and error or straight from the book. There's too much I don't know. There's too much I have to hide. Maybe that's why I'm avoiding thinking about Shauna spiriting me away for a party. I'm turning into some paranoid hermit. Though Shauna would argue that I've been a hermit for much longer. It's not that I don't want to go out. It's that being a person is becoming a lot more of a taxing process as of late. Especially so close to a national holiday. Plenty of kids love sharing a birthday with a royal. It means a holiday and parties happening all over town. Even if it isn't directly for you, you get the chance to revel in the entertainment. Then again, with so many royal children, there are more and more chances to share a birthday. Even with all the benefits, it's always been too much attention for me. And that just brings us right back around to the problems of school. Too many people that are too overly invested in things that don't matter. As much as Genevieve's being an intentional pain in my ass, others are doing the same unintentionally. And it's almost as bad. Most of the students are torn into two groups. One wants me to fail. The other wants to see this upstart of a relationship succeed. Though I'm pretty sure that's just the group that wants to see Genevieve have to publicly break off a relationship. It's not uncommon. But when a relationship ends, you never want to be the reason it did, especially with so many eyes on you. There are a few amicable ends, but those have pretty much flown out the window. It's a waiting game now. Either I fuck up bad enough that she can use it as a reason to break it off, or she fucks up in the public eye, and I can break up with her. It's a matter of honor to see how far we can go. And that doesn't even begin to cover Blue. As much as I came to school today at his insistence, I'm not sure how to handle him. He's been distant, and that much is understandable.
but it does unsettle me. I want to give him space. I want to give him whatever he needs to recover. Unfortunately, I don't understand what he needs, what he's thinking and feeling, and I'm worried that he doesn't either. I don't think coming back to school in such a rush was a good idea. It's been a couple of days, but that clearly isn't enough. I can see how much Blue is trying to keep up appearances, but just accompanying me to classes is sapping his energy fast. I would have liked him to take an extra day, but it was enough of a fight to get him to take pain meds this morning. I don't know how to convince him that taking pain meds doesn't mean he's weak, and I've nearly given up on trying to tell him that taking time for himself isn't a sin. He's shaken. Especially after we got called in to talk with Professor Berg. People notice a flubbed casting, but even more notice when there's a personal request from the professor and nobody gets in trouble afterwards. Either way, people are far too invested, and with that comes far too much attention. Though that doesn't explain the mob of people crowded around the potions room, peering in to get a glimpse of the classroom when it's time for class. Too many people to remain hidden are crowded all around the entryway, half-heartedly hiding themselves behind the door and peeking in, whispering far too loudly to keep anything they say concealed. I push past them to get into my classroom, when I see that this strange behavior continues on in the interior of the room. People are crowded into one big group around the front of the room, with one figure scrabbling at the center of the mob. Oh, right. The new student.